You want a soft nib? Do you want a full flex nib? Do you want a steel flexible nib, elastic nib, soft nib? Which one? Welcome back to the channel. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm your host here from Pandantra. Welcome to a new video. And in this one, we're going to dive into some flex nibs, like the intro said. But I want to showcase something super important regarding flexible nibs. More and more lately, we have a lot of requests, a lot of questions regarding flexible nibs. And I decided to do a video in order to be as informative as possible with your choices for flexible nibs. What do you expect when you are looking to get a flexible nib? And also, what do you need to expect after you made that choice? Maybe this video will help you out in order to choose the one that you want to have the best results with. I have here some flex nibs from my personal collection. I'm going to use a 3-tier system in order to categorize this flexible nibs and the outcome. What you need to expect from them, how much you pay for such an option, and what do you get from it. Then we're going to get into performances. Then at the end, we're going to get into practicality aspect, because this nibs will offer you in this 3-tier format different outcomes. And although I think that this 3-tier system is not perfect, it can help you guide at least into one category instead of the other two in order to actually get the result that you are looking for to have. Or if you make a commitment or a choice which puts you in a specific category and not the other two, well, you know what to expect after the purchase as well. And we're going to start with the options that are at the most accessible price point and the performances, and we're going to get through them. Then we're going to move into the top performance category, where you can actually get the true meaning of the word flex. And as it goes with super high performance cars, you actually can get some things that are missing some comforts. I'm not gonna get into too many spoilers, but I'm gonna explain there. And at the last part of the video, we're gonna get into a category which I like to call the sweet spot. That's where it's my best bet in order to get decent performances at a medium pricing or not, and also still have flex. Let's start first with the most accessible category, which is your steel flexible nib. And I have here two examples of those nibs, a Gravitas fine flex nib, and I have here a Leonardo elastic extra fine point. Well, these two nibs offer you flexibility. What you get from that, it's a steel nib, which actually has like a specific mod. Either that's a long slit, a longer cut slit, like in the case of the Gravitas. From the tip of the nib, we have a longer slit. That longer slit cut allows the nib to actually flex with not that much pressure, to say so, like a normal nib. And in the case of the Leonardo, this is offered with two cutouts right here at the two shoulders. In this way, those two cutouts let the nib spread out a little bit better, a little bit softer, so they offer flexibility and flex riding. We're gonna get also to check out the performances like on a hand riding sample in just a few moments. But before going there, let me explain how in this 3-tier system you can find these nibs where they sit. So in regards of accessibility as pricing, this comes at the beginning or entry phase, so it's not that expensive. In regards of the practicality aspect, I believe it's super high. So entry price point, super high practicality. You can get these nibs and still write normal with the pen on the go, quickly, for notes, in all sorts of scenarios. It's not complicated, and it is a very practical nib. The nib is not going to offer you this flex capability and take away practicality. No, in this instance, you can expect the nib to function just like any other steel nib. And to put it simply, if you let's just say you are at the beginning phase of the hobby and you have not tried yet flexible nib and you don't have big budget. You just want to dip your toe and to check what's the fuss regarding elastic flexible nibs. This is something that you can try and still get a little bit of flex and still have practicality. So if you don't like this sort of nib type, you can get away and still use the pen normally. It's still practical. So what's the catch? What do we miss from this? Well, we actually miss the full flexing capability. In most of these nibs, they are offered with a ABS plastic feeder. So the feed won't keep up with the flow. So if you are expecting night and day difference, you're not gonna get it. And you should not push to get this. And you should not be upset that the feed doesn't keep up with the flow. It might keep up with the flow, but this is because you slow down in flexing. If you apply a gentle pressure and the nib doesn't spread out too much, that can work. But if you expect this nib to just snap back, full flex, from an extra fine to a triple broad and back, well, it's unrealistic speaking. So let's showcase these two nibs on paper. Let me show you how they work. We're gonna start with the Gravitas. Fine flex. So this is a normal scenario. So the nib, it's a fine point, it's not too wet, it's pleasant in writing. And now if we press a little bit, it would take this from, let's just say, fine to maximum a medium. And if we do it with some speed, oh, it keeps up. And if we do it even faster than this, well, it is going to just drain all of that ink from the feeder, and in some cases it will showcase as a railroad, or it will just not be able to keep up with the flexing. And the flexing, it's not night and day difference. So now let's just try the Leonardo. So this is the Leonardo steel, elastic, extra fine. So, as I told you, it is a nice practical nib, just like any other steel nib from Leonardo and other makers. But if you press a little bit on it, it will have some line variation, not night and day, very similar to something like this. So if we press it with a lot of speed, it will keep up, but in some cases with more speed, with a more firm approach in regards of the pressure that's put on this nib, it can railroad. I would not push it any farther than this because it will bend in the process. So if you're expecting super performances, large flexing, snap back and all of that, and beads and a Spencerian like script with all of that flourishing, and that you won't get it with this. At least in this price point, in this material, still you won't get it. Don't expect something big from this, but expect something accessible and super practical. But in regards of the performances, tame it down a little bit, because they will be there, but not to something which it's gonna be gold as a material, higher price, and in a different category. Let's recap. Steel flexible nibs, entry level price point, good practicality, average performances to say so. Now let's move into the other spectrum where we can find the top performances in regards of flexible nibs. Almost mirroring the flexible steel nibs, we have the top performance flexible nibs. And here we can include something like Vintage Flex, which has a broad spectrum in regards of the pricing. It depends on where that nib comes from from which pan, from which year, what's the condition of the pan that comes with that nib. So I'm not gonna get too far into. Then we can find something at the middle price point, which I'm gonna show you something which I believe offers a lot of performances for a decent price, and that pan it's a Pilot Custom 912 with an FA nib. And then we can go to extreme levels, and I'm going to show you something which is a custom flexible nib, which I have on my Gravitas super rare pan. And we're going to start first with the vintage flex. Let me explain what you actually can get from something like this, what you need to take into consideration when using something like this, what's the expected performances, and all of the above. So price point, it is accessible, but this is something that it's different from pan to pan, from nib to nib. What I have here is my Waterman Ideal fountain pen, and this is something with gold bands in it. We have a 14 karat gold nib, which is flexible in the true sense of a flex nib. You get super snapback flexible nib, beautiful line variation, thick lines, very slim lines, transition, practicality aspect. I would not go with this fountain pen in a pen case all around everywhere with me, because it is sensitive. It has a lot of age. It can be damaged quickly. So the practicality aspect, the performances, super high. Pricing, varied. I'm going to show you in just a few moments what you need to expect from something like this in regards of the performances. Then if we move at the middle spectrum, to say so, where you can get good performances, very attractive price point, still a lot of practicality. This is where we can put the custom 912. Offers plenty of line variation with this FA nib. I didn't mention, but in this category, all we have is gold as a material for the nib itself, so we don't have any steel nibs. We have a nib which has this cutouts right here, and the slit is not too long. The feeder, it's one which probably know by now, and you plan to flex this nib but still use it in a practical aspect. This is the perfect compromise. This will get you that flex. It will get you the practicality, not as much as a steel nib. This is just my honest opinion. And still the pricing, it's super great. This is the perfect compromise for a flex nib in the top performances. We can say that this is still accessible as a price point, but in regards of the practicality aspect, it lacks a little bit. It's not that practical. This nib will railroad quickly. You're gonna see that in just a few moments. You need to slow down. You need to press not that much. If you plan to have this, and if you are a great calligrapher and you actually press on it, probably you would be in need of a mod customization, and you need to get an ebonite feeder and to heat set that feeder to this nib and to tinker with it a little bit, and maybe that custom ebonite feeder will come with 3 ink channels, which will bring plenty of ink for the flexing capabilities. I believe that will make the pen too wet and not that practical. So like I told you, a super high-end performance race car, well, it will go around the circuit faster, but if you put that on the street, it will not be that comfortable. This is something just like that. At the most exotic point of our journey, to say so, in regards of flexible nibs, we have this custom gold 14 karat nib by Jose at Nib Labs. So this is a 14 karat gold nib from Gravitas with an ebonite feeder, which has been cut right here. The slit is as long from this point around this point. They have some lines cut horizontal on the nib in order to allow it to flex. A gentle push on this nib will make the tines go like this. So this is something which offers very high performance. Flexible aspect, it will get this nib from a fine point all the way up to a quadruple broad. But this nib will railroad easy if you press it quickly and you just put a downstroke very quickly, it will railroad. It is very difficult to write like a normal nib because you will have the tendency to apply some pressure, normal pressure, like you're resting your hand on a piece of paper, and that little bit of pressure will open up the tines. So it will open up the tines so much that you will get the inner cut part to rub against the paper, so it will not feel that smooth. This is a high price. Flexing performance is super high. Practicality very low. So this is something that you digest and you sit slow at the end of the day journaling. You need a good paper to have with this nib, and you need to take it slow, easy. You need to understand the pace that you're going to use this nib with in order to get that performances. But in regards to flex, it will give you a lot of flex. Now let's put everything what I said on paper. Vintage flex, and we have Waterman, Ideal, Vintage. It is very smooth, enough wet. I would not take this pen with me everywhere because it is sensitive, to say so, but if you use it normally, it's just like any other extra fine nib. When you press on it a little bit, look at that line variation. So I have plenty of line variation. You can get beads out of it. I'm not the best in regards of flexing nibs, but I know that some of you are. So look at this. It will go from an extra fine all the way up to a B or a B plus, and it's something super fun. Like now let's get into the middle category with the custom 912 FA nib. So this is the Pilot custom 812 FA nib. So in normal writing, it's still practical and it's a fine point. When you press on it, oops, like I told you, it can flex, but you need to take it slow. And you need to use an ink which is for flexing. And if you slow down and you don't press that much, it delivers good performances. But if you go like this, look, this is something which it's in need of more ink flow, probably a different ink. I'm not an expert. Maybe among us there is experts that can see this and diagnose this nib and say for sure what it is in need of. As I told you, accessible price point, good performances, in the middle practicality, to say so. And now let's tackle the monster. So Gravitas 14 karat gold flex custom nib by Jose at Nib Labs. So as I told you, when you use it normally, it's not that practical. It's super wet. I mean, look at this. So this is, ooh, look at that. And it's just like a dot of ink, and it's a big part of the page. Now when you flex it, now we're talking. Now we're talking. In some cases, if you don't slow down, this modified ebonite feeder cannot keep up with this nib. So this is normal pressure. Just have the pen just under its own pressure. It's like this. But if you put the hand just like the hand, look, it is already flexing. So it's a impractical nib if you want to be on the rush, on a pan which you take with you everywhere. This is super high price. Probably only the nib alone would be something like 400 euros, around there, plus super high performances, very big price point, and practicality aspect. When you take it out with you to write normally, it lacks completely. So you have to understand that if you want flex only for flex, this is something that you need to consider. So this is the top category. Now in the middle, there is a category which I like to name the sweet spot. This is where a nib is going to offer you plenty of flexing, plenty of practicality. In regards of the price point, it varies. It can be something as low as 400, or it can be as high as a few thousands. It depends on the pan that you choose. I've chose something which I like to call the sweet spot of my personal taste in regards of a practical nib which offers some flexing. Let's get into those options. The first one that we're going to start with is the Kakari. So this blue beauty right here comes with a normal 14 karat gold nib, but this nib is a soft nib, so it can offer some line variation. It's not going to be the type of performances that you can expect from something like the top ultimate category, but it will offer you line variation. It will keep up with the flow, the feeder. It will be at a decent price point, and it's gonna offer you plenty of practicality. Press a little bit on this nib, it will behave sort of flexy, to say so. 560 or 80, no VAT, something like that. I don't know for sure exactly. This is not advertised as being flex. That doesn't mean that you cannot flex it, but you don't need to press on it that much that it will bend the nib. So this is something which asks that you watching right now have the certain skill that you know the limits of a nib like this. But in regards of flexing, it will offer you some pretty decent line variation. I have here a fine, and I will show you in just a few moments how interesting and flexy-ish is this nib. Kind of middle plus price point. Performance is kind of in the middle. Practicality kind of above the medium, to say so, with this one. Then we're going to get into something which is my scribble feel. And this comes with a 14 karat flexible nib. I have a fine on this one, and this is a model which is no longer available on the market. This is something from my private treasure chest, Melograno. It's a very interesting nib. It is advertised as being a flex nib. It will offer you plenty of line variation. It's at a price point which is sort of the same, if not a little bit more, depending on the version of the pan that you're gonna get, comparing it to the Kakari. Ebonite feeder, very flexible, something like a price point of middle plus. Performances, it's gonna be far better than something like the Kakari because it's advertised as being a flexible nib. Practicality aspect, shy under the Kakari because this nib is so soft that you need to control the level of pressure that you apply with it when you write in a normal scenario without flexing. So it requires a little bit more control, to say so. Then we go at the nib which is not advertised as being a flexible nib, but it still offers flexibility, and it's something that I have on my sailor. This is the Kurobeni 1911. This is Urushi. This is a pan that is impressive. This is one of the best nibs which I like to use on a daily basis, and this covers a large spectrum of needs in regards of my handwriting. It's flexible, it's soft, it is elastic, it is smooth, it has a hint of feedback, and it checks every single box. And this 21 karat gold nib is available in a lot of versions from Sailor. So basically what I'm explaining from this pan, you can sort of get with the other models just as well because it's the same nib. Depending on the model that you get it on, it's going to be expensive or more expensive. So in this 3-tier category, I would put the pricing as being super high, or at least medium triple plus to high. Practicality, super high. Performances, in regards of the flex alone, it is average plus. I believe this is a compromise, which is something if budget is a little bit higher, this is what you need to consider, or what you should consider at least. I'm not the person that can advise you to make purchases and investments into fountain pens, but this is just my sole personal opinion. Now let's get these 3 pens on the paper. Let me show you what I just said. For the Kakari, this is a 14 karat gold fine point. Pretty wet from the beginning, so that ebonite feeder works. In normal writing, it's just like any other fine point. Super nice. This is where I just lifted from the paper. And if you press on it a little bit, it will open up. Not night and day, but still it's pleasant, it's smooth even in flexing. The feeder will keep up and it will get this nib from a fine to a medium plus. This is the sort of easy compromise, accessible to say so, in regards of a gold nib which actually flex. Is it the answer and it will offer you super big line variation, elasticity? No. Now we're gonna get with the Scribo feel. Scribo feel Melograno. This is the 14 karat gold fine, so you can immediately spot that this fine, it's finer than the Kakari. And in normal writing, it's a fine point. It has more feedback than the Kakari. And now let's flex it. So a lot of line variation, much more noticeable than something like the Kakari. So this will be like a fine point to a, well, I would say a broad minus, to say so. Keeps up very well with the flexing. So this is a nib which you can get actual flex from it. Don't press too much on it. You need getting used to a nib like this in regards of the softness, so proceed slow, understand the limitations, see how it's behaving. Don't put it into a scenario where this nib cannot offer you the flex without being damaged. And then we get to the ultimate compromise, which is the one that I like a lot, to say so. And this is the Sailor KOP 21 karat gold. And this is a medium. So in normal writing, this nib is just perfect. The perfect amount of wetness, the perfect amount of feedback, the perfect amount of smoothness, super practical. When you press on it a little bit, it can open up. It's not going to be the super crazy top flexible nib like the exotic ones that I've showed you, but it will offer you line variation, and it will do that very consistent, very tamed, nothing extreme, and it will still hold the practicality aspect. So this is something which I think it's my perfect compromise in regards of the flex nibs. Now let's put everything in perspective and summarize everything. Before doing that, if you enjoy my content, don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up. This will help me a lot with the YouTube algorithm and everything else. And if you want to help with the growth of the Pen Venture YouTube channel, don't forget to subscribe. This 3-tier system in regards of pricing, practicality, and performances. This is something that needs to guide your choices in regards of the nibs. So if you choose something which is not that pricey, like a steel flexible nib, you would get a steel nib, full practicality aspect, but you won't get that top performances. Don't expect that. It is absurd to expect super flexing from that nib. Super flow that keeps up with the flexing of your speed, of your degree. This is something realistically to expect from an entry-level tier steel flexible nib. If you go at the other spectrum and if you get something super extreme, just for flexing, like a vintage flex, like a Pilot Custom 912 with an FA nib, like a custom gold nib, which is modded by a nib meister with a ebonite feeder, which has the ink channels cut deep in order to sustain that flexing and all of that. Yeah, you're gonna get plenty of flex, but you're gonna get the practicality aspect a lot lower, because that nib won't behave like a normal gold nib in writing. So you need to understand that if you want a super exotic, very high-end race car, you cannot drive as comfortably on the road like a normal car. And also the price point will be super high. Then if you want to go in the middle, you can actually be in a category where you feel comfortable. Kind of medium-ish plus pricing, very practical choices. You can expect that nib to perform as well in flexing. Well, not top flexing, but in flexing, generally speaking, and as well in a normal condition, and you can enjoy the pan normally as you would. Then there is the choices that you pay a lot for it and they offer you flex, but the pan altogether will come with a lot of interesting things like the Onrushi finish and all of that. So that's the KOP nib. So that's kind of my system. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope that this sort of a video will help you guide and navigate the choices in regards of getting a flex nib and what you need to expect from it. Let me know if you have any other questions in the comment section down below. If you want to support the growth of the Penventure YouTube channel, don't forget to subscribe. It's very easy. Just click there, turn on the notification bell on, and you will be notified whenever we have new content. Speaking about content, if you want to continue watching my previous videos, I'm gonna leave you this right here. You can click and enjoy. As always, I'm your host from Penventure. I look forward to seeing you next video. Take care, stay safe, bye bye.